welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Mr. B on Free Talk with Mr. B. And if it's Sunday, we're starting another podcast, having another episode of You, Me, and ICED. And with our hosts, Dedra Stevenson.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to You, Me, and ICED. And there's Richard.
Oh,
Hi, everybody.
I managed to click the right thing in the end.
Yeah, cool. And we see you a lot better this week. Awesome.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, you're looking bright and bushy-tailed. And Rod and RW over there, my partner at Blue Genie Media. Yeah, we're starting a discussion today about something I'm sure we're all very passionate about. What makes a great writer? I mean, I can start off just telling you what I think, and then maybe you guys want to jump in and say what you think. But as far as I'm concerned, what makes a great writer is a writer that has a lasting influence on your life in one way or another. I think as children, we might have had some favorites, and then maybe as adults, we had other favorites, and they had a lasting impact on how we thought of the world or how we processed information or how we dealt with people. What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I've had a few favorite writers in my life as well. I've actually worked with a few. Michael Crichton, I worked with him for a couple of years at a game studio he owned, and I actually learned a lot from him and had a lot of respect for him. I mean, he's passed away now, but he has, created, not just some great books, but movies that were inspired by those books as well.
Just for those who might not be familiar with him, do you think you can tell us a title or two that everybody would know?
Jurassic Park.
Okay.
There you go.
You got the reaction.
Yeah, and then I worked with him. We were making a game around one of his novels, Timeline, which was about time travel.
So cool. So cool. I love it. And what about you, Richard? Anybody that had a special impact on you?
I started reading science fiction when I was about 12 or 13, I suppose, seriously.
Really?
And I started with Isaac Asimov, and he led me to Ray Bradbury and Arthur C. Clarke and people like that. And they showed me that with just a few words, you could create a world. And that was something that I thought, well, if they can do it, then why can't I have a go?
That's fantastic.
If I hadn't read them, I may never have started actually writing anything myself.
You're so right. You're so right. I think that I can tell you, I mean, now I feel a little embarrassed actually telling you guys who my biggest influence was as a kid is Dr. Seuss. As a little kid, I swear. Well, I was an incredibly shy child. I mean, very, very shy. And I went through a lot of personal, trauma as a kid. And I think that, excuse me, 1 second. Can you guys go ahead and discuss? I'm going to have to deal with this. So sorry.
No problem. Because right away, it came to my mind when you guys were speaking about the favorite writer. I didn't feel I had a lot of opportunities to get into the books, and just did it more as an adult. And then having written my own book, I was like, we looked at books from a perspective of how many words or how thick it was, or you start leafing through, say, are there any pictures? Because of all those words were so intimidating. And then when you grow up with a family where you read all of the books of the Bible or something like that, then you will have a perspective. It's like, oh no, you don't want to read books because they're no fun, and so on. And then I ended up having written mine. My the lady who was helping me with mine says, "Hey, did you know you have like 10,000 words already?" I was like, "Oh, really?" And you don't get a sense of it. When I look at writing, I realize that there's so many people behind the scenes of every video game or behind the scenes of every movie or sitcom doing what's called writing. And so it just started to increase my fascination some more of me saying, oh, I wouldn't write this, or I wouldn't write that. Oh, I love the way he wrote this, or I love the way he wrote that, you know? And so again, today it's still very fascinating that everything gets written. Well, I mean, and you guys probably could tell me more, because I know, Dedra, you're into your movies, and I'm sure if they don't have a script, they're not going to have a movie.
Absolutely. I mean, everything that we've ever enjoyed watching on television, every game that you enjoy playing, you know, basically every TV series that you enjoy watching started in the mind of a writer. It started in the imagination of a writer. And what I really wish I had not been interrupted by that very persistent caller there. I was going to say is that, you know, a writer like Dr. Seuss, you know, for children really gets one started with the appreciation of the imagination. I mean, this is where I learned that you can imagine worlds that are up to you, and it's all okay. And it could just follow your own rules, and who cares really, because it's all, you know, it's your own little universe, just like what Richard said. I mean, when you start thinking about world building, you know, and I mean, and it's a very empowering feeling, you know, and I think that, you know, the imagination, you know, just, it's a very powerful tool. I mean, when you think about it, every great invention in this world started with someone imagining that it could be real. You know, the light bulb, the internet, I mean, you know, whatever, the automobile, you know, an airplane. I mean, it all comes from the imagination, and books, I think, play such a huge part in that. You know, when we're little kids, you know, if we pick up the right kind of influences, we could really be encouraged. And writers have a unique ability to kind of tap into that in people.
Now,
Yeah.
we might, I'm sorry, RW, we might age ourselves when we say certain things, and it's quite okay. You know, because
Well,
a lot of times we went to school and we
yeah.
were, I always look at RW like the youngest in the group. You're just probably the most handsome. Why did you guys have to educate me in this one? Why did they give us Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn to read and Moby Dick? Why was that always the case? Does anybody know?
I never really enjoyed them, to tell you the truth.
And that was the thing, they were just
They were
not enjoyable.
not.
Is it just a school that picked the curriculum? Because I was thinking we could have been reading a lot of other things and doing our book reports and a lot of other things.
I was too busy trying to read the ones they told me that I was not allowed to read, like the Amityville Horror and Carrie by Stephen King. I mean, I was a big Stephen King fan. I went from Dr. Seuss to Stephen King. Now, see that, yeah, that's how this mind works. You know, I think Carrie really captured my attention because Carrie was an odd girl in high school, and I think every high school in the whole world has that one odd kid that doesn't really fit there, that doesn't belong, and people may pick on and think they don't, you know, they're weird or something. And I think I kind of identified with Carrie, and maybe a part of me really wished I did have powers that I could make people pay for how mean they were to me in high school. I'm glad now, looking back on it, that I didn't, because some of them are actually my really good friends now. But I think that, you know, we attach ourselves to books that have something in there that we can relate to, and maybe Moby Dick didn't really give me anything relatable. Maybe that's the reason. Okay. I mean, even Mark Twain didn't really give me anything personally relatable. I don't know about the guys. I mean, what do you dudes think?
Well, I mean, I would have loved to have read those in high school or middle school. They made me read things like the Iliad and Odysseus, and you know, things that just made me sleepy. You know, when also I had the paperback, you know, Salem's Lot or Pet Cemetery by Stephen King, you know, in my book
another
bag.
Good one.
Yeah, in England, we never had those books as a choice. We had Jane Austen and Charles Dickens and stuff like that, which was nice. It was good. But
Charles Dickens.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much in there that you can take. It's such a good snapshot of of a life and time. But again, I was sneaking around the back and reading Brave New World or something like that, or 1984. Just for a bit of
Oh,
light.
1984. Oh,
Yeah.
bravo. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, me
So-
too. Actually, I loved that one.
So
Maybe there's
from-
something in us, we're looking for the things that, we're because that's one reason we ended up being writers, because we were always looking for the odd, kind of off the wall, not mainstream, kind of stuff, or maybe
Yeah,
a bit
yeah.
rebellious.
I
So
think
that,
you read something like that and it gives you an idea, and you take it in a different direction with something that you do yourself to create your own sort of version, not a copy so much as your own take on the way it starts, and then you take it off in another direction.
yeah.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with being inspired, by
no,
another author's work. I mean, I can definitely say that, Harry Potter was an inspiration for the Hakima's Tale.
Mhm.
But I mean, the two stories are absolutely nothing really alike. It's completely different. But I did love the idea of a hero child, fighting, this war against an evil force. There was something really appealing about that to me. And I thought, gosh, there's nothing like that in Arab culture. Why does everyone else get to have the fun and there's nobody getting to fight evil over here? So, the Hakima's Tale came into being.
So I wanted to ask Richard and RW, if you're looking, because you have that diversity in your writing, not just yours, but because every script, even for the games, have to have a writer, you may see the pattern over the different platforms and the different spectrums. What makes it look great to you for a great writer?
Well, one of the strong suits, and especially when I'm hiring writers to work on games that I'm producing, I'm looking for self-discipline, because a lot of times writers are distracted by other interesting shiny objects or subjects. And if I tell them that, we're doing a fantasy role-playing game, but all they want to write is science fiction tropes, then they're not going to be a good fit, for the project. So that's, the discipline to focus and, do the writing that, you started out doing, is one of the primary things that I look for. And it's one of the things that I try to exercise myself.
Yes, to stay in
That's
the
an
course,
excellent
or staying
point,
focused on the
actually.
subject matter. Very nice. And
Yeah,
Richard,
and I'm terrible. I'm terrible about switching, focus. I am easily distracted by shiny objects. And I'll start working on one story and put it down, start working on another story that I thought about overnight. And, I really need to work on my self-discipline.
and that's a good pointer for a new writer coming up. And Richard, with that in mind, new writers are being born every day. What do you tell them? I mean, with 27 or more titles and a long history of writing, whether technical or science fiction, what do you tell them to become if they imagine to themselves they want to become a great writer? What do you tell them?
The first thing you need to do is not think about it, but just actually do it. Just write, get some words down on a piece of paper. Instead of agonizing over a plot and making lots of lists and trying to decide what you're going to do, just start writing. Just put a few words down. You can't edit a blank page, someone said to me a long while ago.
Oh, nice.
That's absolutely correct. Once you start with an idea, with me, but anyway, it starts to flow. And then I see another idea and another one, and this leads to something else. And I'll just carry on in a linear sort of form, just creating. But I'm the same as RW there. I'll get distracted by a comment that someone makes halfway through a scene, and I'll think, well, yeah, there's another story there. And then I'll head off with another piece of paper and I'll write out a few notes, and I'll get another idea from that, and it'll just mushroom, and then one thing will lead to another. Yeah. And then you suddenly remember you've got to go back and finish the thing you actually started on.
Right.
So then, Dedra, that makes me ask you to be the referee, Dedra, because why doesn't it conflict with each other when you have to stay focused, but yet you have to vent by writing and get into the groove by writing and be distracted even with writing, but yet stay focused? Why isn't it not in conflict?
Well, I can tell you what I do, and I follow the advice of, you know, one of my writing heroes, Stephen King, again, when what he told people was that he loved to concentrate on his main, you know, masterpiece, whatever he was working on at the moment, his big project, but at the same time, he had to have a toy truck, you know, something that he would just play with just for fun, like and that's where a lot of his short stories came from. You know, another idea, just like you guys both said, you know, that if you get inspired to write something a little different, you might just do that in a short story form, or maybe even another novelette or a novella or something. But you just sort of, you're writing, you work mainstream on your big project, but then now and then you give yourself the permission to put that down and play with your toy truck for a little while, you know. And because that sort of feeds that satisfaction in you as a writer. Because I don't know about you guys, but I mean, even if I never sold a copy of any book, I would still write. It's just, there's just something in there, you know, that makes me feel like I have to do it. I mean, this is how I experience the world. This is how I express myself. This is how I write about it. I just have to find a way, you know, I create characters and I express how I feel about them through their stories and how I make them interact with each other. It's how I have some control over a world that's uncontrollable, if that makes any sense.
No, because I didn't ask the question because I really believe that it was a conflict. I asked the question because I believe it's not in conflict and that we can stay focused and stay distracted because it's creativity. And so creativity, being distracted fosters your creativity. But when you pick the item that you're working on, of course, you should focus on that item to get it done. And a lot of times the truck, like you use, is filling empty space in our minds. Our mind has a lot of room and a lot of capacity, and we need something to distract it so that we can create. And if you look behind Richard, you could say, and in every library, the only reason why we have so many books is because someone is being successful at it. You know?
Exactly. And one other piece of advice I give to kids who say they want to be writers is write something that you really love. You know, it's just that simple. If you are bored with it, your reader will be too, and you'll also become bored to finish the project. So you really need to feel like a burning passion, you know, to finish the story that you're on. Don't pick something that's dull to you. Right. If you're a science fiction, you know, person, you know, do that. And if you're into horror and gore, do that.
And I'm making up all these questions because you guys are tingling in my mind right now. RW, if you were a myth buster, how would you bust the myth of what a writer looks like?
What a writer looks like.
Or what a good writer looks like anyway. What a good writer looks like.
Well, one of the myths that I hear a lot is a writer has a strong vocabulary. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I know a lot of writers, successful writers that are very shy people. They don't talk a lot. They don't use a lot of words. Myself, I have a very, I don't know, I probably have an expansive vocabulary because I've had so many professions in my life, but I don't think that the myth of you have to know a lot of words and have a strong vocabulary to be a successful writer. I think that's a huge myth. And
that's a good one, dude. Very nice. Richard, then I better let the same question to you because you guys are making me think, but that one is a good one. What would be your myth buster?
In that you can, in your mind, you can go anywhere you want. You're not limited at all. I walk down the street here, but in my head, I'm halfway across the galaxy.
Oh God, I
And
love that.
I think people sometimes look at me because I may be having conversations with myself and muttering while I'm walking down. But what I'm actually doing is as I'm plotting things out, and characters are chatting to me. They're in my head, and they just want to come out.
Yeah.
And very often they're saying, "Why did you write it like that? I wanted it to be like this," or you know.
And that's a good one, because I mean, remember Dedra, they always tell us, or some people seem to propose, that we're supposed to be sitting in a cabin with the windows open, being inspired by that lake and the pine trees, and have those kind of plucking kind of typewriters, when there's no such thing nowadays, is it?
No, not really. I mean, there just isn't, unless you are very independently wealthy and can afford to go to a place like that. I mean, most of us don't have that kind of luxury. I mean, I personally have a family jumping, running past me all the time, a very active household. I even when I go out, the United Arab Emirates is a pretty crowded place, so it's hard to find like even a coffee shop where you can find a quiet corner, and especially in places where people may know you a lot, because it's kind of like a big small town here. Everybody knows everybody. And so I feel like I need to put a rope around my writing corner sometime, like, writer at work, please don't talk to me. But they do, because I'm naturally friendly and they know that. So sometimes, like Richard said, though, I could be doing a little work in my head, even just sort of people watching. It's amazing. Have you ever people watched and you've sort of imagined what kind of character that person would be if they were, say, an animal or an alien or a supernatural character in my case,
Right.
I mean, what sort of, I mean, if they were in, say, a crime story and they were a mafia boss, would they make a good one? I mean, what kind of clothes would they wear? I mean, my mind goes everywhere, when I'm watching people sometimes. They would be so embarrassed, and feel so vulnerable if they knew how I thought, about them.
You've only got to hear one
we just
comment and
simply can't
you
help
want to know
it.
the backstory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You do want to know their backstory sometimes, don't you? I mean, some people just look so interesting, and
Yeah, and
you
then what
wish you
happened
could just go
next?
up to them. What happened next? Exactly. Oh, I so get that.
I'm glad we
There's another
did.
story.
I'm glad we did that, because I think it's inspiring to our listeners and anyone who wants to write, to know you don't have to be that character that's portrayed in the media of what a
No.
writer is like. And I like what RW said, because if you don't have an amazing vocabulary, you do know how to speak. And today, when I was writing my book, I opened my phone and start talking to my phone. And there's a lot of apps that would just write down what I said, right? Because I would not have finished that book if I had to type it out. Because as soon as I type, I'm losing my imagination, I'm losing my thinking pattern. But if I'm just talking, and so text to talk works very well. And I thought that would be a way anyone could write anywhere. Just talk to your phone and capture it in the program and in notes. Most of our devices do that. And I thought that was a really neat way to capture my thoughts when I was putting the book together. And of course, I handed it off to someone to help me double check the grammar, because I don't want to spend any time grammar checking while I'm thinking or using my imagination,
And that's why you need a really good editor. I mean, sadly, that is a necessary evil. When we finish our books, we have to hand it over to someone who will just rip it to shreds, and find everything wrong with it. Because there will be many things, and that will be sad for you. But part of what makes, I think, a good writer is being able to power through that and not lose your motivation, but just understand that you're going to take it on the chin and just, march through it and just make those changes, and you will produce something you can be proud of then.
And another interesting point, I mean, Richard or RW, bestsellers, we keep getting that little other thing called bestsellers, and it seems like it has nothing to do with being a good writer.
No.
I've never had a
No.
bestseller, so I couldn't actually sort of comment on that. I've had a worst seller, but not a bestseller.
Because I'm into smiles and joys, and I couldn't care less about bestseller. How do they, using up a little bit of our time that's left, how do they categorize that in the best writer category for a game?
I think it's all about algorithms, right, Rod?
No, not necessarily. Every year in the game industry, we have something very similar to the Oscars or the writing awards, and it's the number one criteria is sales. The biggest amount of sales, but also it's the amount of retention. How long are people actually playing the game? If people play the game for a very long time, that means it's a very successful game and you've done something right to keep people interested. And then the publishers will start looking at that and say, oh, great, I think we will fund a sequel. And that's normally what will categorize a bestseller for a game.
Right. And we want our listeners to know we're not talking about the animation and the graphics and all. We're only talking about the storyline, the storyboard, and how it was written.
Yeah. And back, last week I talked about immersiveness, so the ability to pull somebody into the world and, make them enjoy their time spent playing the game goes a long way for the popularity of a game.
Right.
Very nice. And I think Richard was saying something about the joy factor. I couldn't care less about bestsellers. I want someone to smile.
Yeah. If at the end of the day someone likes it, and if they want to buy the sequel, that's great. But even if they don't, if someone will just say, "Hey, I really enjoyed that," then it's worth doing. It means that what I've produced has given pleasure to someone else. And that's nice. That's a nice feeling. Because if I hadn't bothered doing it, no one would have read it. And then, it's a good feeling to know that what you've scribbled down in sort of 3 o'clock in the morning has made someone else smile or made them happy.
That's what keeps me buying Richard's books.
right. So Dedra, let's bring it home. Everyone could be a good writer.
Everyone could be a good writer, but you have to realize, I don't know if you guys have seen that meme with the ballerina and the one foot has the beautiful ballerina slipper and the other foot has her broken toes and the band-aids and the cuts and everything, that show just how much this ballerina had to work, and practice to get that good at her art. And the meme says everyone wants to be an artist, but no one wants to put in the work. No one understands the work that goes into it. Well, being a great writer, yes, everyone does have the potential to be a great writer, but understand that it's not going to happen just like that. No, it does take work and it takes discipline and it takes powering through it. And it has to be something you actually really want to do. And that's what separates, I don't want to say the men from the boys because I'm sitting here, let's say that's what separates the ones who do and the ones who don't, because they're the ones that just, power through and actually make it happen, putting in the time, putting in the work. So, keep that in mind and you can be better. Just find your voice and find what you're passionate about.
All right. Very cool. I'm really glad everyone was on and this is so fascinating. I didn't know how this show would go, but I'm really enjoying it already. And I actually look forward to you guys taking as many commercial moments as you can to tell people where they can go to find your book. So on the next episodes, you just feel free. It's free talk, so we can do it anytime. Or where to find RW, where to find your favorite writings or your favorite game or so on. Dedra, where people can find your movies, because the whole idea is for us to make it a joy for our listeners and to give back to the community too, some of our work and what we do. So I really look forward and thank you so much, Dedra, and for all of you on. I'm totally enjoying this.
Oh, I'm enjoying it too, so very much. It's great, positive energy. I feel it. Yeah. Looking forward to next week.
For sure. Hey, you guys have a good evening. I'm gonna let this convert and wave and make a podcast out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take care, guys. See you next week.
Take care.
Yeah.